All right, we're on section 1.3, solving linear equations. The essential question for today's lesson is how do I solve a linear equation for a variable? So this should be a review for most of you, and you should be able to answer that question by the time we get finished today. So we're going to be solving equations with a variable on one side of the equal sign. So in this case, we have x on the left-hand side, and we're trying to get x by itself. So in the directions, normally we would say solve for the variable or solve for x or just solve. So we're trying to get x by itself. So you need to ask yourself the question, what do I have to get rid of to get x by itself? So here we want to cancel out the 4/5, and we always want to cancel out the 8 as well. So first you need to get rid of anything that is not actually attached to the x. So we're going to subtract 8 first. So the 8's will cancel out, and we get 4/5 x equals 12. Now from here, there's two things that you could do. You can do what's called multiplying by the reciprocal to get x by itself. So we could multiply by 5/4 on both sides to cancel out the 4/5. You could also multiply both sides by 5 first. So we could do that now. We could multiply by 5. So then we get 4x equals 60. And then we divide by 4. And so 60 divided by 4 would be 15. So x equals 15. And so that would be my answer. Another thing you could have done back here to cancel out the 4/5 is you could divide both sides by 4/5, but that's harder to do mentally. If you did it in your calculator, you could, but I like to do it this way because it's easier to do mentally. Um, and then you can always go back and check your answer and make sure you did it right. So we would take 4/5 times 15, which would be 12, and then you would add 8, and so you get 20. Now let's practice solving some more equations. So 4x plus 9 equals 21. Same process. You want to get rid of anything that's not with the x first. So we want to get rid of the 9. So we have to subtract 9 to cancel it out. And then we get 4x equals 21 minus 9, be 12. And then we're going to continue. We're going to divide by 4 again. So we get x equals 3. 4's go away. And you can try plugging that back in. You can do 4 times 3, which is 12, plus 9 equals 21. So we know we did it right. Okay, let's try another one. 7x minus 41 equals negative 13. So we want to get rid of the 41. We're going to add 41 to both sides. So we get 7x equals, and this is negative 13 plus 41. So essentially, we are really doing like, you can do it negative 13 plus 41, or you can do it like 41 minus 13, which is 28. So we're going to divide by 7, and then x equals 4. And again, you can plug that back in and check if you need to. All right, so pretty much review for most of you guys. All right, now we're going to get into some equations that we have to solve using the distributive property. So anytime you have parentheses in your equations, you always want to distribute first. So you're going to distribute both sides. So we have parentheses on both sides. So after we do that, after we distribute, we're going to get 3x plus 6 equals 5x plus 20. So I took 3 times x, and I took 3 times 2, then 5 times x, and then 5 times 4. So this is what we have now. Now, we have variables on both sides of the equal sign. So like this equal sign is kind of like your divider here. I have variables on both sides. That can't happen. So to get rid of that, you just have to pick one of the variables to cancel out. So pick either the 3 or the 5x to cancel out. So to do that, I'm going to cancel out the smaller one because it's easier. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. That way I can get all my x's over here. So then I end up with 6 equals 2x plus 20. So now I have all my x's together on one side. And then I'm going to solve for x. So from here I'm going to solve it just like before. I want to get rid of the 2 and I want to get rid of the 20 because those are with x. But I'm not going to get rid of the 2 yet because it's attached. So I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides. And so I get negative 14 equals 2x. And then I would divide by 2 to cancel out the 2. So I get x equals negative 7. And then of course you can always go back and check your answer on that. So you can plug in negative 7 and make sure that both sides are equal. So let's go ahead and do that. So 3 times negative 7 plus 2 equals 5 times negative 7 plus 4. So negative 7 plus 2 would be 5. 3 times 5 would be 15. And then negative 7 plus 4 would be negative 3. Nope, that would be negative 15. I'm sorry. Negative 7 plus negative 2 would be negative 5 times 3 would be negative 15. And then negative 7 plus 4 would be negative 3 times 5 would be negative 15. So they are equal. So we know we did it right. All right, let's try one more type of practice problem. Okay, this time we won't go over all the steps. We'll just work it out. So first, remember what we did? We have our parentheses. So we need to distribute. So we get negative 8x minus 20. And then here we distribute. We have equals negative 2x minus 18 minus 4x. Now from here, you have x's on both sides of the equal sign. So you can either go ahead and try to cancel one of them out. But something that I notice is I have x's here and here on the same side together. So whenever they're on the same side, like if I use this as my divider, whenever x's are on the same side of the equal sign together, you can combine them first. And that's what I like to do. So I have negative 8x minus 20 over here equals, and then negative 2x minus 4x would be negative 6x. Now I can go ahead and try to cancel out one of the x's. I like to do the smaller one. In this case, negative 8 would be the smaller one, so I'm going to add 8x to both sides. And then I have negative 20 equals 2x minus 18. So from here, I want to cancel out the 18 first. And so I get negative 2 equals negative 2x. And I divide by negative 2 to get x by itself. So I get x equals 1 as my solution. And you can plug that back in and check. All right, now we are going to go ahead and go over solving equations with fractions. Now, this looks like it would be a really difficult problem because of the fractions. So, since solving equations with fractions is hard, why not get rid of them? So, we can get rid of the fractions by finding a common denominator between the two. So we can find a common denominator between 6 and 8. Now you can do that by like listing out the multiples of 6, so like 6, 12, 18, and then 24, and so on. And then you can list your multiples of 8, so you could have like 8, 16, 24. And so the least common one is 24. You can do it that way, or the way that I do it, just to make it faster, is I always just multiply the denominators together. So what I did was I took 8 times 6, which is 48, and I used 48 as my common denominator, which will still work. You just will have to reduce later, which is no big deal, but it's faster. So I multiplied 8 times 6 to get 48 as my common denominator. And so whatever you come up with as your common denominator, if you multiply all the numbers in the problem by the common denominator that you came up with, then the fraction should end up canceling out. So I'm going to take and I'm going to multiply all three parts of the problem by 48, which gives me kind of a large number. That's why some people do it this way where you find the smallest one. So I'm going to take 1/8 t plus 1/6 t equals 7. And I'm going to multiply every single one of those by 48 because that's what I use as my common denominator. If you use 24, then you would multiply them all by 24. Doesn't matter because you'll still come up with the same answer. Okay, so from here, if I take 48 times 1/8, that's like dividing 48 by 8, which would be 6. So I get 6t plus, then 48 times 1/6 would be like dividing it by 6, so that's 8t equals, and then I take 48 times 7, which is 336. Now let's look at our problem. We have 6t plus 8t equals 336. Now, these are on the same side. If I just read it, 6t plus 8t, well, what would that be? It would be 14t equals 336. So then to solve for t, I would just divide by 14. So 336 divided by 14 would be 24. So t equals 24 is our solution. And you can plug that back in and check. All right, that's all for today. So if you would just go back over your Cornell notes and highlight 3 to 5 main things and then put those into a summary, I will check those in class tomorrow. Thank you.